On this episode of the Dubcast, Wellington have done the Samba. They've danced their way through Poletti Park and they danced their way through Sydney FC's defensive line as they put 7 past the Sky Blues, while Melbourne Victory had a mixed week of results. And Canberra versus the Mariners went for over 4 hours across 2 separate lightning delays. Does this mean McKellar Park can host night fixtures in the future? We'll get into that as well. And Perth continue their run of form back towards the top 6, while Melbourne City get bragging rights in the derby. On this episode of the Dubcast, my name is Poletti. Joining me as always is Burke. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. Like, for those of you who are new to the show, usually Burke and I will go back and forth for a little bit. We'll jump into our big storylines, the things that, we picked out throughout the weekend that took our fancy. But I don't think there's any sense in, masquerading through that little illusion today. We know where we're going to start, don't we, Burke?
Yeah. Let's not try and make this anything other than what it is, which is the Point and Laugh at Sydney show.
Your words, not mine. At Poletti Park on Saturday afternoon, it was Wellington 7, Sydney FC 0. In what has to have been the rout of the season to date. Renaya Elliott opened the scoring in the 3rd minute before Samba scored her first goal for Wellington Phoenix in the 13th and topped it off in the 69th minute with a brace. Grace Jarley had goals in the 36th and 54th minute, an 80th minute and 90th minute own goals, to Tori Tumeth and Sarah Hunter respectively, rounded out the 7 goals. Do we want to start with the positive of the Wellington Phoenix, or do we want to start with the negative of Sydney FC? Because, I think maybe the positive is the place to start, but, given that the big storyline is usually, you kick us off, I'll give you the choice of where we start.
I was actually going to say let's start with Sydney, just so we can drag it all the way down and then end on a high.
Okay. So if you have any complaints about us starting off negative, you can direct them to Burke.
Please at me, tag me. I will not acknowledge it, but you can. You can do that. Send me a DM. I also won't read it.
Okay, so a 7-0 loss to Wellington for the Sky Blues. Ante Juric speaking after the game, a loss is a loss. 1-0 or 7-0 is the same to me. Winners and good players turn up to training and work hard regardless of results, and that mentality won't change. All 7 goals were preventable. Some were basic errors. Others were about not picking up players. Those things are fixable. Everything went for them and nothing went for us, but we didn't deserve any luck with the way that we played. That's a lot to break down right there, because I don't necessarily disagree with Ante's assessment, but oh boy, I mean, there's a big difference between a 1-0 loss and a 7-0 loss.
Yeah, it's kind of called 6 goals.
Yeah, particularly in a league as tight as the A-League Women, where we have seen in recent memory the final spots be decided by goal difference. Maybe some of our friends out west would have something to say about goal difference impacting the ability to make finals in recent seasons. Willa Pearson was also missing from this game. Ante Juric again post-game. She's 14, so I've got to take care of her. She's played a lot of football, and with the schedule we've had, it was about managing her load. Look.
So now we want to manage her load, do we? Okay.
Yes. Like,
all right.
I've got to take care of her. I mean, I wouldn't be putting a 14-year-old
on the pitch at all, personally.
Yes, personally.
That's just me. Or I guess that's just us, but...
But I mean, this is also the worst Sydney FC have looked defensively this season, and if a 14-year-old is the answer to their defensive problems...
I think they have bigger problems.
Yes. They've had games where they haven't conceded, but I mean, the transfer window's almost about to shut. We know they're not going to have Nat Tobin for the entire season now. Nat Tobin... announcing last week after we recorded that
of course.
she is pregnant.
Congratulations to her.
And congratulations to Nat Tobin and her partner. So there was never any hamstring injury, in Nat Tobin's words. It was a pregnancy the entire way. So, yeah, I mean that the optics of that aren't
They're not great.
great when
No.
the club, and by the club I mean Arte, is relying on a 14-year-old to cover for a 29-year-old. The
Well,
optics there aren't great, in my opinion, at
like
least.
I understand it's like obviously a very sensitive issue, pregnancy, but did the league know? Like, did the league know that this was why they pushed for Willa Pearson as
I
opposed
have
to it
not reached out
being
to
a
the league for comment, as I
hamstring?
have had an insanely busy weekend. So I'm
Fairs.
not even gonna speculate on that. I think
That
without
was the first
knowing
thing that I thought of. Obviously, not knowing the answer, but
yeah,
was like obviously it's not a problem really that we were kind of lied to because of the reason why, but I don't think we should make a habit of this.
no, I agree. There should not be a habit made of this. Also, Juric, after the game, we'll analyze it, we'll fix what needs fixing, and we move on. Here's where I have my questions. Is more of this on the way for Sydney FC? Because I looked at this game, I watched it from start to finish. I didn't get a chance to watch it live, so I went back and watched it on Monday morning from start to finish. And I could see where Sydney was struggling. The defensive lapses were there. This has been coming for a while, in my opinion, with the way that the defensive structure is set up. Just the way that they were playing didn't look like they were a cohesive unit. It looked like a side who was under pressure. Whatever reasons for that pressure, it's clearly impacted their play in this game. Keep in mind, this is how I'm seeing it. Arte Juric, other analysts may see things differently. This is how I've seen the game. As I said, no Willa Pearson, who was being rested. I think there's more of this to come for Sydney FC. I think the problems go far beyond the starting 11 that was on the pitch. I think the problems go far beyond what the players that were available on the bench for this game. And I think it was telling at halftime that of the players who have scored a goal for Sydney FC this year, keeping in mind Sydney FC have only scored 4 goals. 2 of them were taken off at halftime in Mackenzie Hawkesby and Riley Tanner, who are also players that have assists, if memory serves me correctly. I did have the number up earlier, but I have since lost it in amongst the vast information I had open to try to prove some of my points here. So great organisation by me. Actually, no, if I scroll up, there we go. I was in the wrong part of what I was looking for. Yes. So, sorry, no, it was Bianca Galic came off, not Riley Tanner at halftime. Riley Tanner came off later in the game. So, Ante took off 3 of the 4 players that had scored goals throughout the season for him thus far, and both Riley Tanner and Mackenzie Hawkesby having multiple assists, while Bianca Galic has the so just 1 assist apiece for Mackenzie Hawkesby and Riley Tanner. I think it's telling in and of itself that those 2 players were the ones who came off at halftime. Look, of their 27-player squad per Sydney FC's website, Nat Tobin and Indiana Dos Santos are both gone for the season. We know this. Shea Holman is still yet to feature in a matchday squad this season because of injury, and Alyssa Rose was on an injury replacement contract for Holman, has played a grand total of 6 minutes per FB ref. Laurianne Moyes has played a grand total of 5 minutes and has been unable to make a matchday squad since the opening round of the season. Again, that number per FB ref. Claire Corbett and Sophia Fante are yet to make a matchday squad this season. Elise Opedasano has made a matchday squad but did not play, both Fante and Opedasano being reserve goalkeepers, so it's naturally understandable, given that most teams in a season don't run through 4 goalkeepers, unless you're Sydney FC last season. And Ante Juric when asked after the game if he was looking to make any moves in the transfer window with the window close to shutting, said, "No, I'm happy with the squad." If you're happy with this squad, then things are going to have to change, and fast, because this is not a squad that is doing anything at the back end of the season as it is, unless there is a drastic change in the tactical approach. This is a side that got ripped to shreds by the Wellington Phoenix, and Wellington Phoenix have provided the blueprint for the rest of the league to take advantage of Sydney FC. They have an insane schedule coming up with 9 games between January the 4th and February the 13th. Players are going to get exhausted. These are semi-professional athletes, and we don't need to go into that again. These are semi-professional athletes who are going to be playing what is essentially a top-flight European team level of schedule over, from the start of January to the middle of February. As I said, 9 games. That is because Sydney FC's game this weekend against Brisbane Roar has been postponed. We'll get into that a little bit later. The schedule is getting worse for Sydney FC. Sydney FC also did not make finals last year. They did make a run towards the back end of the season, but it was too little too late because of problems that the side had earlier in the season. Those problems are once again showing itself in not only this result, but at points throughout the season. Yes, Sydney FC, I believe, from memory, were sitting in the top 6 before this game, have now fallen out of the top 6 with other results. Look, I just look at this and I see a side that, yes, on goal difference, it's the reason they're out of the 6. Speaking of, a difference between a 1-0 and a 7-0 result, Sydney FC would be in the top 6 on goal difference right now, had they not shipped a further 6 goals to the Wellington Phoenix and had that 1-0 scoreline. Wellington Phoenix now have a +6 goal differential and are sitting outside the top 6. So it is a tight league. The schedules are all over the place. Everyone's played a mismatched amount of games as it stands at the moment. But there are problems here for Sydney FC. As I said, they have a jam-packed schedule coming up. Semi-professional players in the middle of summer. It's going to get exhausting for Sydney FC incredibly quickly. I already mentioned Alyssa Rose and Lauriane Moise. 6 and 5 minutes respectively. Sky Halmarik has only played 115 minutes. Hannah Lowry has only played 116 minutes. Now, Lowry coming back from injury, that's a bit more understandable. Halmarik, 115 minutes, no starts, 5 appearances off the bench. And Amber Luchtmeyer, 2 games, 2 starts, 102 minutes. Other than that, like, everyone else has played more than 150 minutes already. Excluding Heather Hinds. If that trend continues, you're going to get some even more exhausted players, because you're going to be chasing results, you're going to be needing wins, and as we saw with, as we have seen with other coaches in recent history, when you become over-reliant on your starters, the rest of the team suffers. And I fear that's what's going to happen here with Sydney FC. Particularly if you've got a player like Lauriane Moise, who can't even make the matchday squad. She is a foreign recruit and she is sitting up in the stands. What's going on? I genuinely don't get it. I'd love to hear an explanation. I'd love to hear a plan and tactics and everything like that. I don't think I'm going to. I'm genuinely concerned for Sydney FC that they are going to miss finals for a second year in a row, which would be an absolute disaster for a club that prides itself on, on its winning record, on its trophy success. I have genuine fears for Sydney FC, Burke.
Yeah. Look, and I don't mean to rub salt in the wound for anyone, but I have been saying that Sydney are not back. I did say that. So, yeah, the point you make about the scheduling for Sydney, that's not good. That's not good. feel that this season is the most chaotic season I've seen thus far, simply based on like game scheduling alone. Not even like, let's not even get into how chaotic the actual gameplay has been. Um, Although we haven't actually seen any goalkeepers sent off yet, so maybe last year's still in contention. Um,
Maybe.
but yes, Sydney's next month. Uh, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
I,
So I will
yeah.
run you through the schedule now over there next month. They're away to Melbourne City on the 4th of January, at home against Adelaide United on the 9th of January, at home against the Newcastle Jets on the 13th of January, away to Melbourne Victory on the 25th of January, away to Perth Glory on the 28th of January, home against Western Sydney on the 31st of January, home against Canberra on the 8th of February, away to Brisbane Roar on the 13th of February, and that postponed game is Wednesday the 4th of January. So that is a lot of games in not a lot of time. After that Brisbane Royal game, they then have a month off before they face the Newcastle Jets because of the Asian Cup. Yeah, it's
Good luck.
those players
I
are
hope
going
you
to
guys
need
like
that
running.
month long. Those players are going to need that month long break by the time they are done with this schedule.
Yeah, at the very least. At the very least. This whole situation, it's kind of stunning that we're even talking about it considering who Sydney FC historically are. It was kind of funny last season, and I won't lie, it's still kind of funny to me now. But that's just because I'm Victorian, so, and also because I'm me. But on the most serious side of things, this is really bad for them, and I I feel like it's also just a really bad look for the league. Like it's one thing to, you know, always kind of be consistently bad, but it's another thing to have always been consistently good and then have such a unbelievable cliff dive into badness. Um, yeah, they've got a lot that they've got to fix and not really any time to do that in. So I hope they're ready to learn on the fly, literally on the planes that they will constantly be on. Good luck, Sydney FC.
Yes,
That's
I
really all I can
fear they
say.
will. I fear they will need it. On the other hand, let's look at the winners in this game, the Wellington Phoenix. This was a, do I dare say it? Yes, it was a 7-star performance from the Wellington Phoenix. My word, as I mentioned, that they started off strong. Manai Elliott in the 3rd minute, and they did not stop for the next 90. Even when the game was done and dusted, they did not stop. They kept putting the pressure on. I think it was 22 shots total, 8 of those on target, and the only one that didn't end up in goals was because Samba decided to run over Tiana Roberts, or try to run over Tiana Robertson rather than shoot around her, and then in the second half, for her second goal, actually decided to go around Tiana Robertson in a one-on-one scenario, so she clearly learned her lessons there from the first half. That Samba gets her first goals in the A-League women competition. Grace Jarley gets her first goals this season. This has been coming for the Wellington Phoenix for some time. They've talked about how they've been working on it. We saw last week in the game against Perth, they just couldn't get past Perth's defense. They've looked strong when their players haven't been limping off the park injured. Like, this is the Wellington Phoenix we were all expecting from Bev Priestman,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of unfortunate for Sydney FC that they kind of left themselves on the plane and were. I'm looking at it holistically, that
Yeah,
they were
no,
the
it
ones on the
is.
receiving end of an absolute beatdown here from the Phoenix.
Yeah, they just did not make a single mistake. In fact, they like, can you make a negative number of mistakes? That's how many mistakes they made. Less than 0. Yeah, just every single thing they did was the correct thing to have done. It also, I guess, helped them that Sydney were just supremely bad. That's really all you can say for them. Um, but yeah, I'm so happy to also be vindicated in my off season or pre-season, I should say, assessment of the Wellington Phoenix. I'm so glad they finally arrived. And I so hope they can continue this, you know, serious winning trend. I think it's really good for like New Zealand football. I think it's really good for A-League's football. Um, yeah, really good stuff. Really good stuff. I particularly loved Grace Jale's goals. Shout out Heidelberg United because she also played there. Um, Yeah, and I think I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one, but one of them was the 100th goal for the Wellington Phoenix in total. So that's also an exciting number for them to rack up. And yeah, it's also nice to see the Phoenix fans rewarded for their commitment to their club. Because, a lot of them do a lot of travel for this team. So it's nice that they didn't have to go so far at all to see such an incredible show out from their side.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in 100% agreement there. Now, I'm going to do this typical sportscaster, sort of question to get a very specific answer out of you. So if you're watching this on the shorts, you'll understand exactly why in a moment. Last week, I asked you whether or not you thought that Bente Janssen was the best signing that has been made in the league this season. Has Samba outdone her with her performance here? Is Samba the best signing of the league this season, or is it still Bente Janssen?
I think I'm going to have to still say it's Bente Janssen just because she's been consistent in her goal scoring. Obviously, Brisbane haven't played this weekend, this round.
And they won't play this weekend either.
No, they won't. Um, but I don't Samba has been good. Don't get me wrong. I think the only thing that's gotten in her way is herself because she's had these injury issues that she hasn't seemed to be able to shake. But if she continues on the upward trend that she has now set herself on, I don't see why she couldn't come for that title. But I am my I have more stocks in Janssen. I do have stocks in Samba. Don't get me wrong, but more in Janssen.
You're just diversifying your portfolio a little bit,
Yeah.
just waiting to sell at the right time to
I know what.
maximize your value.
I know how the economy works, guys. Yeah,
At least one of us knows how the economy works.
it's not me.
That will do with our review of Wellington Phoenix win over Sydney FC. We'll move right ahead now to taking a look at Canberra versus the Central Coast Mariners, a 1-1 draw at McKellar Park. Now, this game was moved forward half an hour to account for a lightning delay based on the predictions coming in to the game. It did not account for 2 lightning delays. Annalise Rasmussen scoring in the 67th minute, Sasha Grove scoring in the 90th minute. And look, we'll start with the game itself before we get into the talking point I really want to get into here. Annalise Rasmussen was forced into a low percentage shot from an XG perspective, but boy did she make it count.
Yeah, she's a really, really good player. And I really love seeing her succeed because it's such a good homegrown story as well. Um, yeah. And I love her perseverance towards scoring, in general, but in this game as well, she was very she was taking the risks, taking that shot that shouldn't really have worked. But that's kind of the sign of a really good striker is that they'll make what seems impossible possible. So,
Yep. And then Sasha Grove scoring in the 90th minute after as I said, 5 p.m. kickoff. Her goal scored at well after 9 p.m. local time. As someone who has sat through one of these games at Campbelltown Stadium, I can tell you it's not a fun experience, and fair credit to every single Canberra United supporter and potentially travelling Mariners supporters that sat through the entirety of this game, including the delays. Trust me, as someone, as I said, I've been watching these games and I have been seeing people streaming for the exits after just half an hour of delays. Like, it is not fun to have to sit through these. And I say that knowing that I was doing so from the comfort of the media box, let alone being down in the stands. But the talking point that I want to get to from this game is we have long heard that the reason Canberra United games kick off at weird times, and I say weird with, inverted commas, is because the McKellar Park lighting is not suitable to meet the minimum broadcast standards. And yet this game finished at 9:15 after 2 storms, and I watched the broadcast and the lighting looked fine to me. And I say this as someone who has commentated at venues where the lighting is significantly worse than what was at McKellar Park. Okay, I'm not saying start a game at 7:30 p.m. local time and play the entire thing in lighting like this, because it was clear to me that it needs improving. But, if the difference between kicking off a game at 5 p.m. and kicking off a game at 6 p.m. is going to be like a 5-degree temperature swing, I see no reason why you can't possibly play the last 10 to 15 minutes in lighting like this, because, as I said, I watched the broadcast, it looked fine. Maybe people at the ground had a different experience, maybe the players had a different experience, but I saw no issues here.
Yeah, I think that's going to be what it comes down to, really, with the actual on-field experience. But I don't think you're wrong in suggesting that there should be something different going on at McKellar Park. I don't know, maybe they should put a review into the lighting. Maybe it's better than they think it is. Maybe we're being tricked by the stream. Who can say? Not us. I'm not in Canberra, so.
Yep, so definitely something to think about going forward. In my opinion, again, much like our discussion earlier around Willa Pearson and, Nat Tobin and the injury, have not reached out to anyone for comment on any of this. I have had way too busy a weekend to do such things, so it's merely an idea and a suggestion. But if we end up in a situation where players are kicking off in 34-degree heat again at 5 p.m. in the afternoon to account for the lighting situation, I will most definitely be reaching out for comment and using this game as an example. Elsewhere around the league, Friday night, Newcastle going down 3-1 to the Melbourne Victory at home. Goals to Kennedy White, Rihanna Policina, and Nikki Flannery for the victory. Lauren Allen getting a consolation in the 81st minute. Perth securing a 1-0 victory over Adelaide United. Roller Batawea in the 39th minute. And then Melbourne City defeating Melbourne Victory 2-1 in the first Melbourne derby of the season. Rihanna Policina in the 32nd minute, because, of course, Rihanna Policina had to score in this game. Claudia Bunge with a 65th minute own goal, and Holly McNamara with an 84th minute goal to seal the 2-1 win for City. Of those 3 games, Burke, is there anything you wanted to talk about from those games?
Victory in their game against Newcastle had an absolute belter. Once again, Rihanna Policina, the goal that she scored in that game was ridiculous. You kind of have to just see it to believe it, kind of thing. The with the assist, the way she managed to even get the shot off as a volley, I don't know how you do that. I definitely would not be able to do that. There may be witchcraft going on here. I am willing to get out the tinfoil hat. I won't, but I'm willing. great stuff. Unfortunate for the Jets because they didn't look too bad either. They just something something wasn't connecting for them. As for Perth, did you have anything on Victory Jets? No.
The only thing I want to say on that is I think Newcastle are just going to be one of those hit and miss sides this season. We've talked about it over the last couple of weeks. Are they for real? Are they not? I think they're just going to be one of those teams that sometimes will pull out a spectacular result like 3-0, like they did against Brisbane last week, and then this was the week before, and then like last week they're just going to fall 3-1 to Melbourne Victory because that's just seemingly what's going to happen. If they want to be contenders, I think Stephen Hoyle needs to find a way to fix the defense because it's been letting him down this season.
As for Perth, Adelaide, I know you've got the flu, but we got to do something. We got to do something. Nice for Perth to get back-to-back wins. The Badawia goal was lovely as well. I've said this probably on here, definitely on the other podcast that I'm on. Susan Fonsong-Cam, really good at football. Please watch Perth just so you can see Susan Fonsong-Cam play, please. Highly recommend doing that. She's great. That's really all I have to say there. Anything from you?
Look, for me, something is clearly not working at Adelaide United. We've brought this up previously. I don't know what it is. I will profess I haven't watched them closely enough so far this season to see exactly what the issues are, but there is something there that's clearly not working. And I don't know. We've mentioned this. You go from Adrian Center to Thea Siunius, mostly the same players. Something's changed. I don't know if it's just the coaching that's changed or something's changed within the playing group, but Siunius and Mariska Walters have a task on their hands to get this squad fixed rather quickly. For Perth, I don't know how sustainable this strategy of absorbing a ton of pressure and getting one goal to win games is.
It's working so far. Let's see how far they can take it.
Yes. Yes, I think that might be the best way for it. But there's going to come a time where they'll probably cop 3 or 4 trying this same strategy out. Yeah. And then, yes, Melbourne City versus Melbourne Victory.
Yes, I just want to say one final thing on the Perth game.
Yep.
Shout out to Tian McKenna, who played the full 90, I believe, in centre back, which is not where she usually plays because they had an injury to Zog, I believe, who had to step out. And she did excellently, considering the last time she played centre back might have been like when she was back in the NPL in Victoria, hot minute ago. So yeah, shout out to her. Great performance.
Yep, and then Melbourne City 2, Melbourne Victory 1. As I said, of course it had to be Rihanna Policina, and boy did she celebrate.
Yeah, as she should. As she should. Football in Australia is much, much, much better off when Rihanna Policina is playing at her best, and you can tell why. She's a game changer. She's a game maker. Unfortunately, her one goal wasn't enough to seal the deal. This game really was kind of victories to lose because they scored in the 39th minute. No, 32nd. Yes. I'm blind. And yeah, it looked for a long time like it was just going to go that way. It was just going to be one of those games. But yeah, Aiden Keane, it's a controversial one, I will say, but this league doesn't have VAR. So if the referee says that the ball didn't cross the line, that's the decision that is the one we go with. Yeah, but commiserations to Victory fans. Oh, sorry. You may recognize that cat if you are watching this pod. This is an unofficial crossover episode with the Far Post pod. That was Melon the cat owned by friend of pod Angela Christian Wilkes. I'm currently looking after Melon and his sister Mimi. She's around here somewhere too. But yes, crossover rep. Here he comes again. Nope, he's going to. Okay.
As Mr. Peanut Butter loves to say, what is this? A crossover episode?
It is. Not that. I mean, yeah,
It wasn't a planned crossover episode.
No. But oh, here he comes again. Okay. Yeah.
This is all staying in, by the way. This is all staying in as it should.
As it should. I wouldn't have directly explained myself if I wasn't expecting it to be contained in the pod. But as I was saying, where was I? Oh yeah, So if I'll be honest, I do think that ball was fully over the line. I don't think that goal should have counted for City. But yeah, that's just the way the cookie has crumbled this time. Sorry to Claudia Bunge, who is the victim of the own goal. Also, random aside, FOTMob, if you use the app, absolutely kills me every time someone scores an own goal, because it's like, yeah, Claudia Bunge scored. Like, it sends you a little notification with like an exclamation mark, like it's exciting. Like, read the room. Read the room. The goal that Holly McNamara scored late in the game, that was something incredible. Letitia McKenna off the free kick just played a brilliant ball along the ground. I know usually everyone wants to go up and over, but it really looked like a training park exercise that they just got off perfectly. Yeah, ball found the feet of Holly McNamara. Holly McNamara on a strange angle, as she is wont to do. Again, as I said, good strikers are able to do those things, and yeah, it was just perfect. Just perfect. My stocks in McKenna, very high. Very high. If we're running low on a midfielder in the Matildas, which I think unfortunately we are, I'm firmly seated in the Letitia McKenna camp. Joe Montana, I hope you were watching.
I think McKenna is probably one of the more likely bolters to get a call up in the midfield. I think I've made my thoughts known with one Beth Gordon, but McKenna certainly a worthy candidate for a bolter spot in the Asian Cup squad. That win for Melbourne City sends them to third place in the table from
big jump.
Yes, from ninth spot coming into the fixture, which just shows you how compacted the table is, especially with teams having played an uneven amount of games. The way I'm choosing to look at the table is everyone has games in hand on Melbourne Victory. So good luck, Victory, holding your spot at the top of the table, because everyone's coming for you. You're going to need it.
I'm not even bothering to look at the table at this point, because everyone's played such a silly amount of games at this point, except for Melbourne Victory. So yeah, I don't even acknowledge it. When they were like, oh, City's going third, I'm like, oh, great. That doesn't mean anything.
Yes. No, it is far too early in the season for it to mean anything at this point, which I guess flies in my criticism of Sydney FC earlier, but we move regardless. In news around the league, we've already covered Nat Tobin will miss the season because of pregnancy. Congratulations to her. Sydney vs Brisbane has been postponed to Wednesday, February 4, as we already mentioned. That is because, and I will get the official wording up here so that I don't get it wrong, due to issues with the Leichhardt Oval pitch, as my inbox decides it doesn't want to refresh. But there's basically issues with the surface as the NOS Council moved it from a winter pitch to a summer pitch because of the Australian Championship. They haven't had a chance to do that before now, with RPL Leichhardt playing their home games there. And it apparently has left the pitch in an unplayable state. There we go. So Leichhardt Oval pitch deemed unsafe to play this weekend which has resulted in the removal of Sydney FC's men's game as well as the Sydney FC women's game. Not a good look from the Inner West Council, particularly when this is not the first time that the pitch has had issues, which has impacted Sydney FC fixtures. It also impacted Unite Round in the second and final year of that as well, particularly when the Inner West Council have made it clear they want to make Leichhardt Oval a hub for women's sports, in addition to securing West Tigers games in the NRL and NRLW competitions, of which the venue is set to undergo significant renovations to suit Burke.
Yeah, not great. If you you can't say you want it to be like a hub for women's football and then do this. Yeah, not great. Not great. Oh, kind of interesting though that they weren't able to find a single other ground available. I will say. I guess everything's happening, right?
Yes, the only other venue that I believe would have suited requirements is Cogra. I don't know if that venue is out of action, but I do know that they do occasionally undergo pitch relaying because that has been floated as an alternate venue in the past, and has been unavailable in the past because of pitch relaying. I'm not across that. This news came down not long before we recorded, so I haven't had a chance to look, but yes, I don't believe there are any other suitable venues available on short notice. And then the last piece of news I wanted to touch on is that Paramount Plus and Network 10, in partnership with Ninja, have announced the launch of the Claire Polkinghorne Medal, a new honour recognising the standout player of the Ninja A-League women's season. The Claire Polkinghorne Medal mirrors the Alex Tobin Medal, also presented by Ninja, which celebrates the breakout player in the A-League men's competition. The winners of both the men's and women's medal for this season will each receive $30,000 and will nominate a junior football club to receive $10,000 worth of Ninja products as part of Ninja's support for grassroots football. Claire Polkinghorne said, "It's an incredible honour to have a medal named after me, especially in a league that has shaped so many players, including my own career. The Ninja A-League women competition continues to produce world-class talent, and I'm thrilled that this award will spotlight the players who drive the game forward every single week." I mean, I can't think of a player in the women's game who is more worthy than Claire Polkinghorne to have this medal named after her.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm so glad she's getting this recognition that she absolutely deserves. I'm also really glad the league is getting this kind of award. My shout for it, if we're looking at is it meant to be like breakout Australian player? Or is it just breakout player?
So the Alex Tobin medal, it will mirror that, as I said, and so it is the 3-2-1s that are announced on the broadcast at the end of each game, and those get tallied up throughout the season.
Right. Okay. So in my mind, the breakout player Australia-wise so far is Danella Butcherus for Melbourne City. But across the league, probably Bente Jansen. The stocks.
Not Samba?
Not yet. I explained myself before. You're not going to get me.
I can only try.
Keep trying, but you're not going to get me.
That is more than fair. So yes, that was the last piece of news I wanted to touch on. Is there anything that I've missed that you wanted to touch on before we have a look ahead to this weekend's action?
No, I think we've gotten everything. Yeah.
Jolly good. So as we established on the last episode, we're not doing predictions anymore because this league is impossible to predict. Adelaide versus Wanderers will take place at 4:20 p.m. local time on Saturday afternoon, 4:50 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. A game is part of a double header. The Central Coast Mariners will host the Melbourne Victory at 5 p.m. in Gosford. The Newcastle Jets will host Canberra United at 6 p.m. at the number 2 Sports Ground in Newcastle. Melbourne City will host the Perth Glory at 4:50 p.m. at Amy Park. That game is part of a double header on Sunday. On Sunday afternoon is 1:15 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time, 4:15 p.m. local. And then on Tuesday night, the Western Sydney Wanderers will host the Wellington Phoenix, Tuesday the 30th of January. That game taking place at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 9 p.m. New Zealand time. And then the Central Coast Mariners have their normal New Year's Eve fixture against the Brisbane Roar. That game is also part of a doubleheader, 4:15 p.m. kickoff on Wednesday afternoon. Lot of exciting action to look forward to over the next week or so, isn't there?
Yeah, I think Mariners' victory will be interesting again, just because of where both teams kind of are, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Adelaide Wanderers will be interesting because it's like, let's see who's the worst.
Yep, so both
Sorry,
sides
guys.
are currently tied on most metrics at the bottom of the table. Western Sydney Wanderers in 10th, Adelaide United in 11th. And the only difference between the two is the goal for and the goals against. Western Sydney Wanderers with 4 and 10, Adelaide United with 3 and 9. So the winner could create some space at the bottom of the table to the team directly below them. Personally, I have my eyes on Newcastle versus Canberra. I want to see what Canberra can do and whether or not Newcastle can bounce back, and whether they continue their hit or miss style week in, week out, or whether it becomes a proper, it looks like it might become a proper run of misses, because I don't expect Canberra to take this game lightly at all. We're heading into Christmas, and that's us done for this week, Burke.
That is. I hope you've all enjoyed, if you're watching, the melon appearances.
I mean, look, I was looking forward to seeing Melon. I thought that maybe we might get Melon staring at the camera so we can get a good look at the face, but not just walking across the screen.
He's busy.
And now I've kind of got a glimpse as to what it
inspect.
looks like, what I imagine it would look like during a recording session of the Far Post Pod. Hi, Marissa. Hi, Sam. Hi, Angela. Hi, Anna. How you doing? We might be back next week. We might not be back next week. We haven't quite worked out our schedules yet. So the best thing you can do is hit the subscribe button and hit the little notification bell. That way you'll get a notification as soon as we drop into your feeds, or if you watch us on YouTube every week, you'll be able to see us then, and you'll get notified of exactly when our next episode is if we don't record next week. But we launched we launched this podcast last year. We had a good first season. We're almost halfway through our second season here on the Dubcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you all joining us along the way. We appreciate every single one of you who listens week in, week out. If this is your first episode, I don't even know what episode number we're on anymore. If you've listened to every episode, we appreciate you all. May you enjoy your holiday periods. Given that we know that a number of different holidays are celebrated this time of year. It's not just Christmas. Enjoy your holiday periods. Hopefully you get to relax, take some time off. As someone who's worked hospitality and retail, I know I've worked hospitality, Burke has worked retail. We know not everyone gets time off this time of year, but if you do get a chance to sit back, relax, we hope you enjoy it. And we'll be back. If we're not back next week, we'll certainly be back the week after to recap all the A-League women action as we do every single week. But for Burke, my name is Poletti. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll chat to you next time.